Welcome to the business podcast of the American Chamber of Commerce in Australia. AmCham business podcasts are hosted by Dr. Duff Watkins. Duff is a director of Exec Search International, an author, and is also on the AmCham Council of Governors. AmCham, bringing business to you.
Hello and welcome to the AmCham Business Podcast. Today we discuss the topic, comedy at work. Are you kidding me? Comedy at work. Hello, my name's Duff Watkins. I'm your host of the AmCham Business Podcast, and today our guest is Rodney Marks. Rodney Marks is, well, quite frankly, folks, he's a fraud. He's a fool. He's a clown. Oh, what he actually is a corporate comedian. And welcome, Rodney. Good to have you with us today.
Thank you, Duff. You forgot to say that we're friends.
Yes, that's true as well.
Because in the age of, corruption inquiries and transparency, one needs to lay bare any conflicts of interest. And the fact that you called me a fraud was in fact the truth. That you said that I was a liar for hire. Well, you didn't say it in so many words, but I inferred that you implied it, is in fact the truth.
And I meant it as well, especially the bit about the fool. Now, Rodney, you're a corporate comedian.
Is that fool with a capital F?
You're a corporate comedian. Now, I've known you for a long time. Exactly what is it that you do? Tell me again.
Thank you for asking. I perform my genre of comedy, which is the corporate imposter or the comic hoax, at business events of all sorts. Major conferences, small boardroom functions, cocktail parties, awards nights, seminars, conferences, colloquia. You know what a colloquia is, Duff?
No, but it's more than one. Okay, well anyway. Okay, so you're an imposter. So corporate comedy, you are an imposter of what? Walk me through that.
So
how does it work?
I'm introduced, for instance, as an executive search consultant of the highest level, well-credentialed, Yale graduate with a doctorate from another country.
Now we're talking.
And into a room full of ambitious people who might be interested in meeting such a person, such as me or even you. And or it could be the new chief executive, the new board chairperson, a management consultant from McKinsey's or Booz or Boston Consulting Group, somewhere
and it's a
prestigious.
Hoax. It's all an act.
It is an act, but the act is not exposed for some hours, and occasionally for longer than hours. But usually it's about a 4-hour engagement. So let's say it's a dinner. I might turn up at 5, attend the last hour of a conference, have pre-dinner drinks from 6, the first part of a dinner, and over the main course deliver a keynote address. And that might be on the future of the company. It might be delivering the financial statements on behalf of the CFO. It might be delivering the strategic plan on behalf of the CEO. It might be delivering a report from the shareholders on behalf of the chairman or the chairperson. And so people are engaged. My character has stature, and they've met him. He's introduced by someone very important to the group, perhaps someone not known for their sense of humour. But usually people get to senior executive positions because they have a sense of humour, because a sense of humour shows that you understand ambiguity, and they learn to control their impulses, to tell the jokes that are perhaps inappropriate, but they're still consumers of humour. And then my presentation, my performance, has 3 elements to it. I tease the industry or industries in the room, the organisation or organisations in the room, and about a dozen individuals. And at different parts on that story arc, different members of the audience get it. So the laughter is like dominoes. After about a third of the way through, maybe a third of the people have got it. And the other 2/3 are uncomfortable, because even though my characters are idiots, he's a general, he's a senator, he's a judge. What will he think of us laughing at him? So there's a kind of a complex and subtle interrelationship within the audience. Also, I am the beneficiary of unsolicited help. So you might be suspicious that I'm a put-on, but I might say to you, no, I saw him on ABC News last night. He's the real deal. And so people in this environment, whether it's in the US or Australia or Britain, they buy into the leg-pulling aspect of it, and it becomes a co-creation, partly for the way I just described, and partly because, like all experienced comedians, I have more material that I can use in a particular time slot.
Yeah.
So you might have, after a lifetime, you might have 4 hours of material and a 45-minute slot. So you begin, if you're doing a club, and I still do clubs and pubs and festivals, if you're doing that, I do a joke about first date and a joke about divorce. The audience laughs more at the divorce than the first joke. Okay, I know where they're at. I do a joke about politics. They don't laugh so much. I do a joke about, the location, the city in which we're in. They laugh a lot. So the audience sub-edits you, word processes you as you go through. At a corporate event, you might do a gag about the boss. You might do a gag about marketing or finance or operations and production or strategy or, the bureaucracy or the competitor. And then you go where the laughs are in that way. So it's a co-creation, and it's that's why people like live work, because it's in the moment, it's energizing.
I have seen you work a few times, and what strikes me is that when you're getting at pretending to be an expert, you speak just enough nonsense that stays within the bounds of credulity, that you're sitting there thinking, well, this sure sounds like BS, but maybe it's not. And then as you go on, it gets more and more preposterous, and then the audience slowly, gradually begins to get it. Is that a pretty common example?
That's yep. In fact, I want to listen to what you just said and write it down because that's going to be in some marketing material of mine in the future.
Well, give me an example. Tell me how it works. In fact, just give me one example. Say from a corporate hoaxes and jokes is your business. I know that. So tell us. Give us an illustration.
Well, I'm pleased to be here at the American Chamber of Commerce in Australia, and as you know, industry associations, chambers of commerce, those involved with clubs and other sorts of affiliations in the non-profit sector are struggling, and the American Chamber of Commerce has formed not just a strategic alliance, but almost a merger and acquisition relationship with a number of other chambers of commerce, and from henceforth there'll be a new industry association, which will be the Australia-Israel Chamber of Commerce, the British Australian Chamber of Commerce, and the Brazilian Australian Chamber of Commerce, along with the American Chamber of Commerce in Australia, formerly known as AmCham, all combined. It's just going to be called ChamCham because we don't want any hierarchy.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you get when you're sitting in the audience listening to him spin this complete and utter nonsense that starts off sensibly, and then all of a sudden it goes into the realm of preposterous. But it is amazing how many people will buy in on that. There's a question time at the end of my performances, and it's an opportunity for people, the funny people in the audience, to be funny and get revenge, not so much on me, but on, if you were the booker, it would be on you, Duff. Yeah. And they'd say, oh, what do you think of Duff's tie? Or, you know what I mean? Is Duff the sort of guy you would trust in the future, given that he's just been involved in teasing all his friends and in a comedy of betrayal? And it's a fun way for people to bring out their inner child, but also to momentarily and appropriately forget their business card details. They're just people. And the boss is a person, and the personal assistant is a person, and the chief marketing manager is a person. Everyone is human. And that's an important reminder. And it through laughter there is some cohesing of the group, a shared experience, and people recall not just my performances but other comedy performances years later. Oh, you remember that day when he paid out the boss, or things that, even though the boss may well have been the booker, the boss pays comedians
to humanise her or him, and to remind their subordinates that when they tell you to do something or say, join me on this journey, it's not about power that's egotistical. It's because that's their job. And they're just in that role. And you're in your role, so let me do my job and you do your job and we go together. But underneath it all, we're not our business cards, we're people.
Okay, so why... Okay, I know that you are a trained actor. I know that you have a master's degree from Harvard, and I know that in order to pull this off, this hoax, you have to appear to be astute and knowledgeable, which means you have to do some homework and research. But let me ask you this. Why should a company pay for your brand of corporate comedy? Why not just hire, I don't know, stand-up comedians or strippers or whatever they used to hire in the old days?
Well, I think that entertainers have always had to be tailored if they're going to be successful in the workplace. So there's been comedians and ventriloquists and jugglers and so on the business circuit in the US for over 100 years. You know, this is not. So you know, you can imagine the juggler would be given a brief. Okay, we're using you for a metaphor. Lots of our troops have to multitask. Show us how to keep a lot of balls in the air. You can imagine that the ventriloquist, hopefully the ventriloquist could say ventriloquist better than I can say
than you,
ventriloquist,
yes.
Would be told to play perhaps the customer, as well as have a customer doll as well as a staff doll, and do some role playing there in a safe way. And comedians forever will have had to have humanised the workforce, celebrated success, made sure that those people who were too big for their boots were taken down a peg or two. So I fit in a corporate tradition that is as old as organised workplace, and I fit in a comedy tradition that goes back throughout history and presumably in prehistory, although because Duff, and you would know this as a Yale graduate, when it's prehistory it means there's nothing written.
Wait a minute, slow down. Yeah, okay, I got that, thank you.
So, for instance, my favourite characters in literature are Polonius from Shakespeare's Hamlet, who was the Prime Minister of the court, and who said lots of eloquent things that meant nothing. He was the original waffler or double talker. And my other favourite character is from 16th century Italian improvised theatre, mask theatre called Commedia dell'arte, and that character is Il Dottore, the doctor. So the well-credentialed, you know, blustering fool who uses big words, again, that are empty, weasel words. So my characters are like that. Too often in the workplace, someone full of puff says things that are important and pompous and empty, but they can't be called to account within the normal organisational framework. It's not only politically incorrect; it might be career suicide. But a comedian can say things because you just come in and then you go out. And a comedian can say things on behalf of. So, for instance, if the boss wants there to be more plain talking amongst staff, might hire a comic hoaxer. If he wants there to be more straightforward behaviour, not walking on eggshells, not worrying about status, but if the kid in the mailroom has a great idea, let's go with the great idea. Let's not worry about it came from the kid in the mailroom. You know, only the marketing department can have ideas. Let's not do that. So my genre in the US is known as as put on. I'd be a put on artist there. In the Commonwealth, it's known as you're a corporate imposter or a comic hoaxer. In Australia, this genre is particularly popular compared to other countries. And I think that's because we like to have an egalitarian workforce. And And so my character's gone on a great journey from being very important to being less than important.
The theme that I've seen in your characters, and I've seen a few over the years, is you always appear to deport yourself as the expert. But in fact, the more you talk, and it certainly sounds like an expert at the beginning, but the more you talk, the more it reveals that you're full, but not of knowledge. You're full of something else.
Bloated syntax, also known as BS.
Yes, yeah, that's it. That's the word I'm searching for. And now, why you? Why are you, as the comedian, allowed to get away with this leveling process in corporate comedy? I mean, I've seen you make fun of the bosses.
Look, not only do I make fun of the bosses, sometimes the bosses are the ones who hire me to make fun of them.
Yeah, and then they pay you for it.
I think this is an ancient role of the court jester, that it levels the boss. Sometimes the boss is terribly removed. You sometimes hear of politicians or like presidents and prime ministers who lose touch with their electorate because people are afraid to talk to them. But if they surround themselves with people who have no fear because they're actually not reporting to them, they just come in for a short time and then leave. It's easy to be fearless if it's not your day-to-day deal. Then it's a bit of insurance too. And if there is some BS going around, so let's say you're distributing water in bottles. Let's say you're distributing Sydney water in bottles, and you're charging people $5 a bottle for Sydney water, which they could get from the tap. Yeah? This is not a very good product. Yeah? People can see that the cost of the goods sold is like 5 cents, and the cost to the market is $5. This is a fraud, but someone in the organisation might think it's a great idea. Everyone's afraid to criticise that someone. But if a comedian comes in and says, look, are you kidding? I can just turn on the tap. What a stupid idea, yada, yada, yada. Then no one loses face. I developed in a kind of a coffee session once with a group of mates a fictitious company called scapegoat.com and a fictitious email address, eblame@scapegoat.com. And so if, let's say, marketing and sales are having a fight, you call in a consultant from scapegoat.com. He says, you know what, it's my fault. He's dismissed publicly and summarily on the spot, and emotional catharsis is had by all. Marketing and sales can get on again. So it's that sort of character to just through laughter take any sting out of criticism, but also be purposeful. So
it seems to me that you're speaking truth to power, and yet somehow you're doing it in the nicest way possible, getting a few laughs and picking up a paycheck at the end of it.
Yeah, my paycheck is not nearly as good as the other people who speak truth to power, management consultants or financial consultants and so on.
Okay, well, so let me ask you. Every company has conferences, seminars, awards night functions.
Colloquia.
They have those too, I hear. Now, you think it's a good idea to have some form of entertainment at these major business events. Why?
We've lost a sense of ritual in daily life as we become more secular. And contemporary Western theatre came out of the church. I'm sure you know that.
Yes.
So the miracle plays from medieval Britain. And now we punctuate our life with other rituals. We need things to mark the passage of time, the creation of products and services, and the progress of people through the ranks. Conferences, annual conferences, major conferences are part of that, but so too are quarterly events, Friday afternoon drinks, things that add structure to a kind of otherwise amorphous life. So when someone is promoted, when someone retires, when you reflect on what your hard work has achieved, when you got a particular product or service to market, when you beat the competitors, all of these things need to be marked. How are they marked? You know, you could ask the same question. What's the relationship between food and drink and business? Why do you need to have awards nights that are over a meal? It's part of the ritualising and the marking of the time. The reason you have awards nights is to celebrate success. But surely you could have an email just sent around saying, "Congratulations, Mary, you're the salesperson of the year." It doesn't have the same gravitas, the same marking of time. And to have a singer belt out an anthem, to have some dancers give some life and see things move in 3D, give you a different perspective on what talent is. We talk about talent in the corporate sector as the executives. That's a name taken from the arts. And absolutely, people are talented. They're really good at leadership, or they're really good at maths, or for you that would be math. You know, but to see other forms of talent recognises talent appreciates talent. So if you're a talented leader, why wouldn't you appreciate talented dancers? You know, you can see the value in that. So I think it's to do with the humanising of the workforce, the cohesing of people into teams, and the ritualising of and structuring of time. You know, there are annual reports. There aren't reports just given out every now and then. It's an annual report.
I think it goes back to what you're saying about the human element of it, how basically businesses are created, run by, operated by humans, and you simply can't get away from the humanness of the people. Now let me ask you this. Okay, you've convinced me. I'm a company, or I'm going to have a seminar, I'm going to have an event. You persuaded me that I need to have some humorous entertainment. So I'd like to hire a corporate entertainer, a comedian. Now, I've never done this before. And of course, you've been in the business 25, 30 years now. So you know a lot more about it than I do as the prospective client. What do people like me who are thinking about hiring a comedian, what do we need to know?
You need to know whether the person, whoever they are, is coachable, is briefable. Will they stick to a brief? That is, are they respectful? So you don't, if you say we have a no swearing culture, you don't want them to swear. If you say we have a no sexism, no racism culture, you want them to respect that. If you say we have an ageism culture, anti-ageism culture, you want people to fit in with where you're at. If you're sponsored and the sponsor wants to be mentioned, you've got to make sure that the person will do that. If they say, I can't do that, I've just got a set piece. See, if you're hiring a singer, you might say to the singer, show me your song list. And they might have a song list of 200, but you've only got 5 songs they can sing. You would work with that singer on that song list and do songs that related to your products and services so that it was congruent. Well, the same with a comedian. You give them the parameters and say, look, I want you to talk about innovation and the relationship between creativity and innovation. I want you to talk about, the people in Melbourne and Perth, how they're different to the people in Sydney and Brisbane. And I want you to make Canberra the common enemy. It's like, okay, I can do that. There's nothing moral or immoral about that. That's just a brief.
And if a comedian can't do that, or the entertainer can't do that for whatever reason, I should keep looking.
Well, yeah, and probably before you even get to speak to such a person, you would check them out. Nowadays we're blessed with YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter, and you can see examples of people's work. It's not a matter of auditioning someone in a room where there's no audience. you want video of them in front of an audience. And if you go to somewhere like LinkedIn, you can look at the person's recommendations and write to the people and say, look, you wrote this about that person, but did they have a gun to your head when you wrote that, or do you really believe what you said? Yeah, these are verified testimonials. So apart from some scandalous times when people didn't do reference checking, you've really, it's professional. You would brief a management consultant. You would brief your auditor or your actuary or your architect. It's a profession.
So you've been doing this for a long time now. What have you learned over the 3 decades you've been imposing people? You know, so I guess it's true, which is, I know you have so many characters. I know you do different accents. I know you do even different pigmentations. And so it's pretty true what I've heard about your wife. She goes to bed with a different character every night.
That's right.
Yeah.
She's long suffering, Deborah. 30 years of marriage. What have I learned? I think I've learned that people would like to have fun, given half a chance, which is really nice. People, people in nursing homes like to have fun. Infants like to have fun. My favourite saying for many years is an old proverb: even the wisest man likes a little nonsense now and then. So you see the Pope smiling, you see all sorts of captains of industry smiling from time to time. It's not, life doesn't have to be grim all the time for you to take it seriously. There can be some light and shade. I think of comic relief as not relief from seriousness, but like three-dimensional sculpted relief, that it highlights the seriousness, helps you deal with the seriousness. What have I learnt? I've learnt that it's a privilege to be the person who tickles other people. Someone has to do it, so it's a role. I'm privileged to be in that role. And to have fun with large numbers of people, with small numbers of people. But I also am kind of at the stage where I'm also interested in the theory of humour, and I've started a LinkedIn group called Corporate Comedy, which your members are welcome to join. It's an open group, and contribute to discussions and even start discussions. And so I ask people, and other people ask people questions like, should the boss open his or her keynote speech with a joke? Is it ever okay to be sexist in public through the microphone? Give us examples of jokes that were told badly or shouldn't have been told at all. And when you go out to the wider community, you realise that is just gold, absolutely gold. That, by the way, the general answer was no, the boss should not always start with a joke. It depends on who the boss is. If the boss is able to carry a joke, good. Otherwise, don't be formulaic, just do what you feel comfortable with. There are other ways of humanising yourself without being humorous. For example, you could tell a story. A warm story. It doesn't have to be a funny story. It could even be a sad story. That has the same effect. You put some emotion into your presentation. And so, I found the online community, as well as talking to people one-to-one and in small groups about comedy, is an endless source of inspiration to me. I can see how... people tell me jokes that were told at their weddings 50 years ago. I got told a gag of the best man said, your marriage will work as long as there's no incompatibility. That is, as long as he's got the income and she's got the patability. Now, that joke's at least 50 years old.
That's a dinosaur.
Because it was
but it's a winner.
And you can kind of see the gags from the 10s, 20s, the 1910s, 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, jokes before cars and so on about horses. And, jokes about 9/11, certainly jokes about 9/11 and disaster jokes, Challenger disaster jokes, but also Y2K jokes and so on. Some jokes are the same sort of joke but transferred setup or transferred punchline, and right through to jokes that help you cope with 2014.
Well, that leads me to ask, I think a lot of people think that comedy is easy, that it's simple, that it's not demanding. And I myself, I've done a lot of public presentations and public speaking, and what is easy is telling a joke that doesn't work. I've verified that and documented it many, many times. What's our chief takeaway today, Rodney, for our audience?
Well, like all professionals, when you're good at something, you should do it, and when you're not, you should delegate or outsource. So, if you want humour at your event, don't get the funny girl or guy in-house. Hire someone professional. You wouldn't necessarily get the singer in-house or the dancer in-house. You do someone who's doing it full-time. But also that humour is valuable and not frivolous.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say that it's important, and as I mentioned before, there are other ways of humanising an organisation, but comedy is one of those ways, and it's a worthwhile expenditure, whether you're a non-profit organisation, a private sector or a public sector organisation.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of the Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard said, humor is the great vehicle for truth. It's how we convey truth in a safe way, and it's a way of being either respectful or disrespectful in a socially acceptable way. And I think that's what I'm picking up from what you're saying today. Why it's a good and it is valuable. It is a great value, a good investment for companies to make.
It's more than just a leap of faith. Was that Kierkegaard? Maybe not.
Yes, it was.
It was. Oh,
yeah,
thank goodness! I just passed
you
philosophy
lucked out
one.
on that one.
It's just I got no acknowledgement. You see, I expected a round of applause.
Anything else that you want to tell our audience today, Rodney?
If people want to write their own material, you can do that as well. And maybe get in touch with me. I'll show you how to do that. It's there's a lovely gag about comedy that you need three things to be successful as a comedian: push, luck, and talent. But any two will do. Mm-hmm. So I've tried not to believe in talent. I've tried to believe in push or some sort of communication, and being lucky. And in order to be lucky, I do work. So homework and so on. If people want to learn to be funny, you can learn to be funny. If they want someone to write for them, there are people who write for you. Mm-hmm. And if they want someone to coach them on how to deliver presentations, there are people who do that. I'm not a humour coach. I'm not a comedy writer, but I'm always happy to talk to people and direct you to those professionals.
Well, you may not be a humor writer, but you have taught at Harvard a course on this sort of thing, so your credentials are also well documented. We'll finish up here today, folks. Our guest today has been Rodney Marks, a professional corporate comedian. His business is Hoaxes and Jokes. You can find him online. My name is Duff Watkins, and you've been listening to the AmCham Business Podcast.
You've been listening to the Business Podcast of the American Chamber of Commerce in Australia. This podcast is supported by Lenovo and VML. Lenovo is one of the world's leading personal technology companies, producing innovative PCs and mobile internet devices. Lenovo, for those who do. VML is a full-service digital marketing agency that can take you where you want to go. Everything we are is in everything we do.